The recordings will be shared post the event, so you'll have access to all of the resources that are going to be shared and things like that. And so, just want to get a little overview of what our plan is for today and how we're going to hold our spaces together today. Our agenda is we're in the midst of our welcoming you into our place and hopefully getting a chance to find you wherever you are in a good place. After we're going to at 10:15, we're going to move into our workshop presentation. Again, data compliance and alignment, navigating CalPADS and PACE for expanded learning. We will have opportunities for some Q&A for both CalPADS and PACE with the CD, and Lindsey's going to be um, moderating those conversations for us. And then we'll end around 11:50 with a closing comments, an opportunity for you to provide any insights, feedback for us, and make sure that we have all the things that you all need. And then the Zoom itself will be closing at 12 today. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got a kind of a jam-packed schedule of things to do. So I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what's coming. So if I can get that next slide, remembering that these are shared spaces, these are meant for learning and opportunities for us to be able to continue to grow together. Through this, we're obviously going to hold these workshops in a way that are meant to be collaborative. And so all of the materials that are going to be shared will be in Google Docs. All of the things that are talked about will either be PDF, you'll have the PDF version of the slides, any links, things of that nature, again, will be in the Google Docs. So just wanted to make sure you understand that this is a shared learning space. And what that means to us is that you'll get all of the materials that are shared here so that you have them post our call. And as I mentioned, it's being recorded, so you're going to get that as well. And just a reminder, if you haven't signed up yet, we still have one more session tomorrow. It's making ELLP for your district's collaborative between programs, finance, and leadership. This will be another wonderful opportunity for us to gather some information and how to continue to further our field. And as I said, we are collecting information from these, and proof of that is that the resources for the last session are already up and ready. For those that missed it, please feel free to either connect to the bit.ly link that's going to be dropped or scan to get that information, the science behind quality standards for expanded learning. I wasn't present, but I heard that it was a wonderful presentation that was truly insightful and really thoughtful in the context of what was being shared there as we think about our quality standards. So, yeah, if you are interested and need the materials, please don't hesitate to grab those, either, like I said, through the links or through scanning the code. And we look forward to you all joining us tomorrow. So I'm not going to stand between you all any longer. Data, compliance, alignment, navigating CalPADS, and the pace for expanded learning. Lindsey, I'm going to pass it to you and to get us started and keep us moving.
All right, thank you, Troy. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who I may not know, my name is Lindsey Castillo. I'm an education programs consultant at the Expanded Learning Division in the CDE. I'll be facilitating the workshop today. So it's starting us off with the CalPADS team. After this, we'll have Q&A with CalPADS. Then the PACE team will do their presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A for that team after their presentation. So with that being said, I would like to introduce our speakers. If you could go back to the last slide, that would be great. So for the PACE team, we have Lien and Shawna. And then for the CalPADS team, we have Paula. So those will be our respective presenters from the CDE. So we will look forward to hearing the information that they have to share. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, so just topics we're going to cover. So right now we're going over the flow, giving an introduction. So first, expanded learning program data collection in CalPADS with Paula. Liberty was not able to make it. So first will be Paula representing the CalPADS team here at the CDE. After Paula gives her presentation, I will facilitate a Q&A. Then we will transition to the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program funding overview with Lien and Shawna. That presentation also includes a 2-minute bio break. And after that presentation, I'll facilitate another Q&A for the PACE team after their presentation. And then we'll wrap up for the day. Next slide, please. All right, so with that, I am going to turn it over to Paula from the CalPADS team here at the CDE. Take it away, Paula.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Paula from the CalPADS office here at CDE, and I really only have a few slides. Majority of this session is really going to be our PACE team giving you a lot of content. Hopefully, my information is not new. I think we provided it last year at the Academy, and really we're about ready to start this data collection, so hopefully nothing is new to you. So next slide, please. So by way of just a background, as you know, this year for the first time, LEAs will be submitting to CalPADS as part of what we call our end of year one submission. Basically something pretty simple, but probably hard to gather, but it's the total number of days students have participated in any one of the 3 listed expanded learning programs. And we have in our system in CalPADS, basically all the LEAs that are receiving funds from any of these programs. Therefore, we know that if no data is submitted, you'll get an error basically saying, hey, you have to submit this data, otherwise you won't be able to certify your end of one submission, which is kind of a big deal. So not to scare you, but submitting this data is important because there's a lot of other data that your districts submit for end of year one that have to do with data for us to calculate indicators on the dashboard, special education data, and so forth. So it's really important to at least get this one file in order for your district to be able to certify their end of one submission to CalPADS. Okay, next slide, please. So what we created this year, and it's new, it's a new file to CalPADS called the Local Educational Agency Program file. So the file is built to, in the future, if we needed to collect something else at the LEA level. Right now, for this year, there's only one program being collected, and that is yours, the Expanded Learning program. But it's at the LEA level, which means that you don't have to provide for us the kids that what school they're enrolled in. We're trying to make this really simple. So really the file is going to simply report the students who have participated in any of those 3 expanded learning programs during the year using something called an education program code 194. And enrolled means is defined as any student whose parents or guardians signed an expanded learning program registration form. And the reason that it's defined that way is because the legislature, policymakers, they're really interested in knowing that of the kids that do enroll, whether or not they actually end up participating. So that's why it's important to send in a program code for any kid that signed up versus regardless of whether they actually attended a day of expanded learning. And the number of days are basically students who participated anytime between July 1, 2025 and June 30th, 2026, which kind of aligns with how the funding works. Okay, next slide. And a day is very loosely, broadly defined. It's simply as they participated for a day, meaning that could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 2 hours for either a morning or an afternoon session. But if they did attend in the morning and the afternoon, that's considered one day of participation. Next slide. Okay, so the data that you guys will actually submit to CalPADS on this LEAP file is pretty simple. It's basically the academic year, which this year is 25-26, your statewide student identifier for the student, the code 194, and the total number of days attended between July 1, 2025 and June 30th, including 0, and that is for students who registered but never actually attended. Next slide. And so, hopefully this has already been done. There's been some amount of hopefully a coordination locally that figured out how you're going to basically collect this data, aggregate it, and send it up to CalPads. And hopefully that team would have included basically you all, the program staff, as well as someone from your student information system, someone who knows how to upload data to CalPads, and if you use an after-school vendor, to have included them in your conversation. And we in the CalPads office have had some amount of communication with those after-school vendors. Next slide, please. Okay. So I mentioned this at the beginning because this is probably something that everyone should be aware of. But we have in CalPads what are called submissions, and we have um, always an end of year submission, which is a cumulative collection of data that occurred throughout the year. Previously, we had separate submissions for end of year. We had an end of year 1, 2, 3, and 4. This year, there's been a change to our end of year collections such that we've consolidated certain submissions, basically what used to be our end of year 2, 3, and 4 into one called end of year 1. What used to be end of year 1 is now end of year 2. Bottom line, what you all need to know is that the LEAP your data is being collected as part of end of year 1, and that's being collected along with a lot of the data that LEAs submit to us to determine the indicators on the dashboard, such as student absenteeism, suspension expulsion, graduates complete 1 year well, that's actually not, um, forget that, but special ed data. So there's a lot of important data that comes in at end of year 1. Um, the way that our submissions work is that if LEAs fail to certify any of these specific reports, then the whole submission it fails. It's not certified. So for you all, for the expanded learning folks, there's one report in end of year 1 called expanded learning participation days, I believe, that your LE needs to certify in order to get your end of 1 submission for the district for all the data certified. So I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm sure I'll get some questions about this at the end. But the close of the submission is basically what we call the close of the amendment window, which is July 31st. That's the drop dead date that you've got to get that data in, and you need to have reviewed and certified that report. Okay, next slide. So right now the LEAP file, which is a brand new file, is being tested by some LEAs, some users, and it will be available in our production environment beginning May 5th, 2026, which is when the end of year submission window opens. So we really strongly encourage LEAs to try to submit up a LEAP file early in the submission, like early in May, so that if there's any issues that arise in how the data is being submitted, that they can be addressed early, and enabling you to basically meet that July 31st deadline. So really, we encourage you to try to submit that file early, just to check it out, see if it's working. Okay, and I believe that's the end of my slides. Is the next slide questions? I believe so. So, time for questions.
All right. Thank you, Paula. Lots of helpful information, helpful dates in there that we're really looking out for. So now I invite people to put questions in the chat. I see one to get us started. So Lena says, if our summer school is being funded through ELOP and ends before June 30th, do the days attended need to be included in the end of year 1 submission?
Right. Any days where students participate between July 1 of 2025 and June 30th. So we know that's kind of a tight deadline. It gives basically a month for you to add those days.
Okay. And then Esther, if we submit early May, how will we capture the May through June attendance?
You can submit a file and then submit a file again later. I was suggesting that you submit a file with some data in it just to make sure the file is working and you don't have any glitches on your end. And sometimes when all LEAs are submitting files to us and it's a new submission, we find a little few errors on our end. So it gives us both time to fix any errors. You can then resubmit a file in June and in July. It's what's called a full replacement file. So that means every time you submit a file, it simply replaces everything that you had submitted before. So you can submit, say, 10 students in May, and then at the end of in June, submit, all the students. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you. And as I go through the questions, if I read your question and Paula starts to answer, if there is anything that I may have missed in the question or some context that may be needed, I'll ask the person who asked the question to come off mute and just provide a little bit more context because I know that some of the questions can be a little bit more nuanced. So just as a heads up for future questions. All right, next question is intercession slash summer reported separately from after school slash school year?
It's all no, it's all together. I don't know if that answers the question, but the one difference, this collection is kind of different from all our other collections in that all our other collections is based on where a student is enrolled. So we actually know where the student is enrolled and whether they participated in a program. For this program, it's kind of hard to do that because kids are enrolled in different schools all throughout the year, and they might attend one school and do their after school in a different school and so forth. So that's why we try to simplify it and simply have you all report it based on at the LEA level. So that means the student doesn't actually have to be enrolled in a school at the time that they're participating in the after school program.
Okay, thank you. Next question, since the student school of attendance is not required and the students move schools during the year, the total day count should be across both after school programs attended?
Yeah, whatever they intended throughout the year,
Okay,
regardless of when they were enrolled at different schools, as long as they were, at a school in the LEA.
okay. Thank you. Next question, if we have an MOU with our COE and they submit our attendance reports, does that mean that we should receive a LEAP file from them to upload?
Okay, so meaning that your county office receives attendance for students in your after-school programs? Is that what they're?
For this one, I might ask the
Yes,
person
that's
who asked the
correct.
question. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
So you have an MOU with your county office, and the county office keeps attendance for your students who are in these after-school programs.
correct.
Um, and when they keep that attendance, are they keeping it by SSID? Do they know what LEA the student
Yes, and
is?
they have the SSID numbers as well.
Right. So they will have to provide you those students for you to submit, for the LEA to submit up to CalPADS.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Paula. Next question. We are a third-party vendor and don't have immediate access to the SSIDs. Will we need to get these from the school and match to each student?
Um, yes, you will probably have to have a conversation with those LEAs because really the LEA is going to have to submit the data. You can't. There's some vendors who are working with their LEAs and they're actually creating the files to submit up to CalPADS. But if you haven't really um, done that yet, then you need to work with your LEA to figure out the best way to do it. But generally, what will happen is you will provide the data to the school district, and they will have to match those students with the SSID. I don't know if you have local IDs or some way to easily match students, but basically the LEA will have to match the student to.
Okay.
Was that a? I didn't know if that was related to that question, but hopefully that answers the question. Bottom line is talk to your school districts and your student information systems and the student school. Talk to the people in your districts and talk to the student information system folks. They will be able to help most.
Okay, so connecting with the people who do CalPADS at the LEA level is going to
Yeah, which
be
yeah.
okay. Okay. And I also just wanted to reiterate, these are great questions, and Paula is giving great responses. I do want to reiterate that this is recorded, and will be posted within a couple days. The CAN team does a great job with a quick turnaround time. So just as a reminder, I know there's a lot of information coming right now, but the recording will be available. So you can go back and watch anything you may need to hear again or may have missed. So I'll go to the next question. Do we need to include any program funded by ELOP funds, such as intervention classes?
If they're not considered expanded learning program, then no. I don't. This is more of a program question, I think, Lindsay, because I don't know if you all considered intervention classes to be, expanded learning program or not.
Yeah, for this one, I would say if it's a part of ELOP, it would just count towards the ELOP. I don't think it would be an additional, I don't think counting a attendance for the intervention classes would be counted, if that helps answer the question.
Could I get some clarification on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have like tutoring people come in, and some of the kids that are in there are in with our partner programs that are providing the after school. But some of the students that are attending are not in those programs, and they're opting out. Their families are opting out and registering for them. So do we still need to include them?
I would say no if they are not a part of the ELOP program, the ELOP, they wouldn't be included, but if they are, they would be included.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Next question. If the district has ELOP and 21st, and then their ASES is in a consortium, like at the COE, then they both submit a report, even if there is an overlap of students.
Well, I don't understand the overlap of students, but basically every LEA should submit students enrolled in a school in within the LEA that participated in any of the programs, and they should report the student once. So is the question, does the LEA report them? But if you have some students who are being reported through the county office, do you report them
Lindsay, can I chime in?
separately?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the confusion here is that a consortium might report ACES attendance into ASSIST, our database. However, the LEA is responsible for the CalPADS report, not the consortium. The county cannot submit the CalPADS. So, Paula, what a consortium means is a county office, for example, might be the fiscal agent for 10 districts that have ACES grants.
Mm-hmm.
And they are reporting because they're the fiscal into our ASSIST database. But the
I
CalPADS,
see.
this is separate. CalPADS is
Right.
different. The
Right.
LEA submits all the kids who are enrolled and participate in expanded learning. You have to separate in your mind. ASSIST has nothing to do with CalPADS. ASSIST is a grant management system. CalPADS is our statewide database. So you're not going to report kids twice if they're in each. They have to be in each. So the LEA is responsible to submit the CalPADS report and should submit every student who's enrolled in an expanded learning program, whether it's ASES in a consortium or ELOP or something else.
Thanks, Michael. I think that kind of flows into the next question, which is about the same answer, right?
Yes. Yeah, so looking at the next question, how is this report different than the ACES annual outcomes report? Do we need to submit that again too in the fall? So yes, there are two different reports. Annual outcomes is internal expanded learning, and then CalPADS is connected to the state dashboard.
But the intent, I'm just going to keep chiming in, but I mean, because
Please do.
this is kind of like office hours. The the annual outcomes report will be eliminated once the CalPADS process is fully implemented, because that's duplicate information. So the act of now submitting expanded learning information into CalPADS will, at some point in the near future, I'm not sure if it's this year or next, but we will not be having you submit the annual outcomes report. Paul, the annual outcomes report is where the district sends us the student ID number and their participation in ACES, and that's what's used
Mhm.
to eventually get the biennial report. But so for now, plan on submitting the annual outcomes report until you're notified differently.
Thank you. So next question is two questions. One, just to clarify, both ACES and ELOP students receive the 194 tag. ACES doesn't have a separate tag, correct? So we'll just do one question first.
That's correct.
Okay, great. And two, we had students who attended our summer program 2025 from July 1st to July 18th, 2025. Should I go back and add the tag to those students? We didn't have the 194 tag during that time.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Lindsey, I want to chime in on a question from a few questions ago about the intervention class.
Okay,
I think it's a bit nuanced. Bottom line is, if something is funded to support a student with ELOP funds, if it's outside of the instructional day, which it has to be, if you're using ELOP funds, then it is part of the expanded learning program. So anything that's funded by ELOP outside of the instructional day should be reported into CalPADS.
thank you. Next question, will this include 2026-27 TK students that will attend in an ELOP summer program?
I think it's a program question. I believe TK kids are considered kindergarten, right? So they would be, but it would be for not this year, but next end of year, 2027.
Okay, so that would be reported at, yeah, the end of next year.
Yeah, assuming it's between July 1, 2026 and June 30th, 2027.
What
Okay.
if the program is ending before June 30th for those TKers?
Well, if you can get them in there, they would be this year.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I just wanted to confirm that ELOP submissions for CalPADS is due at end of year 1. I had previous documentation that stated that it was due with P2.
Yeah, when we first started talking about ELP, we had end of year submissions 1, 2, 3, and 4. This year is the first year we're going to have just 2, end of year 1 and end of year 2. And this will be part of what's the new end of year 1, which is consolidated end of year 2, 3, and 4. So it's part of end of year 1. I know it's more information than you
Michael,
needed.
you're not unmuted on Zoom.
What was that? So did that answer that question, I hope?
Can I just ask one quick question? So my documentation was from 2025, March of last year, and it said it was due at P2. I just want to confirm that is not the case anymore.
I don't know what the reference for P2 is because P2 does not factor into this at all. So
Okay,
I'm not
it was
sure
just
where that's
something I
coming
had
from.
gotten from PADC. So as long as we're clear on end of year one, then that's good for me. Thank you, Paula.
Yeah, that might have been a confusion about attendance recovery. But anyway, I'm sure Shawna will. They'll talk about this in your next session.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that these two CalPADS and PACE are separate, but there are some interconnected pieces, so that will fit really well into our next session or our next portion.
Okay.
Thank you. Next question. 21st Century Learning Program, is this a requirement for ASETS high school programs as well?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, any expanded learning. All right. Next question, confirming that if ELOP funds are used to serve 7th through 12th grade students in a K through 8 or K through 12 district, should that also be reported in CalPADS?
I think I believe so, right? It's a program question.
Yes. That is yes. Any students that are served should be reported in CalPADS. Next question. If our ELOP program is run by a third party, is that reported as well? Yes. Next question. Our third-party vendors have added student ID number on the parent application. The ID is a local identifier to get them connected to our SIS student information system. So that sounds like a best practice, which is a great tip. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, because all of your student information systems will have that connection between the local ID and the statewide student ID.
Yeah, next, I recommend getting on the same page as your district. We use their attendance system, ARIES, to track attendance for our program to make this process easier. Yeah, another great best practice is just getting connected with the right people at the district. All right, next question. If a student is enrolled and attending an after-school program at their home school during the regular school year and reported by CBOA, and then also attended a summer program at another school and reported by CBOB, do we need to make sure to merge these so they do not appear to be duplicate errors? I think, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're at the same LEA, I'm sure the LEA will know how to deduplicate anything. So who's ever doing your data at your school district, they can't submit it to CalPADS. They can't submit the same student to CalPADS in the same file twice. So they would need to add those days together and send up one record for the student. But your student information, your folks at your LEA, who are your data folks, should know how to do that.
Thank you. Laura, does that answer your question, or do you want to come off mute for anything? All right.
I want to chime in that you know, Laura is mentioning community-based organization, which is some people, when they hear CBO, think chief business official. But whether or not you're at one site served by one community-based organization and the kids at another, then at another site, different part of the year served by another, the LEA, it should be immaterial whether it's a third party that's serving the child. The LEA is responsible to report the students' participation, whether it's site A or site B or community-based organization A or B. So we have to kind of detangle one of the confusing things here, Paula, is that we have people submit student participation by grant type. So if it's a summer grant, they submit that separately in CalPADS. If it's a before school program, it's a separate submission in the CalPADS. So people are used to thinking that way, and we have to unlearn the difference between submission into CalPADS. That's different from submission into Assist, which is our grants management system.
Mhm.
The rules haven't changed for Assist,
Right.
right? You still have to submit by grant type in Assist for grant management purposes. CalPADS is simpler than that. You don't have to, there's no way to report by whether they're ELOP or ASES or 21st century into CalPADS. It's just, were they enrolled in expanded learning? Yes, no.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's a helpful kind of mindset shift, as this is the first year. So lots of learning. Um, Question for Michael, would we still submit the CQI data that is typically submitted with the annual outcomes report if and when it goes away?
Well, at this point, nothing's gone away. And what happens in the future with the CQI portion of the annual outcomes, we'll be sure to clearly communicate that in the future. But for now, nothing's changed.
Okay, thank you. Are we submitting one report for programs that are funded by ACES 21st Century and ELOP, not submitting as three separate programs? Correct. We do not tag students to one grant, just the program in general, as it is all one program. Correct. So they're all under that 194 code. Sorry, Paula, I took your
No,
job on that one.
this is better that you guys just answer it.
All right. Next question. We have open / drop-in homework support for middle schoolers 6th through 8th, funded by ELOP. Do I need to document attendance, though they are not enrolled? If it is funded by ELOP, they should be enrolled in ELOP. So Danielle, that would be my guidance is for those students who are dropping in, if it's funded by ELOP, they should be enrolled. So we would want to make sure all other requirements are met for expanding to those higher grades, and then make sure that they are enrolled. And I can put my contact information in the chat if you have any follow-up questions, since that is more of a program question, or you can reach out to your regional team. Heather, I'm just catching up. Thank you. Maybe to state this as simply as possible, any student in any grade participating in any aspect of a program funded by expanded learning funding, ACES 21st ELOP, from July 1st to June 30th should be counted for that school year. All right, next question. Do we include 7 through 12 attendance if 7 through 12 activities are funded by ELOP for LEAP or just TK through 6? So again, yes, if it's funded through ELOP, that would need to be counted for CalPADS. We've got some another best practice LEA recommendation is to centralize student data into a single source of truth to streamline this process. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. And then is it possible to see what this report looks like now?
Yeah, there, let's see. You should be able to. Let me think about, if it's not available yet, it will be as soon as it's all in production, which will be by May 5th. If your LEA is participating in user acceptance testing, they would be able to see it now. But I believe we have some mock-ups that we've already provided in training, the CalPADS training, which has started being put on by CSIS. Well, they'll go through what's new and they'll show you reports. But it's pretty simple. It's, just the SSID and the 194 and the number of days. It's pretty much all it looks like.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like just keep an eye on it between now and May 5th.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right. I have scrolled through the chat. It is possible I have missed something. So if I missed your question in the chat, please either put it in the chat or unmute now. But that was really awesome. Thank you. Those are great questions. Great clarifying. Thank you, Paula.
Yep.
So just want to give another minute or so for any questions that come up. And if you are like me and you think about it in about 5 minutes, the CalPADS contact email is there. They're a small but mighty, very helpful team. All right. I am not seeing
Thank you.
any questions. So thank you, Paula.
Thank you,
Really, really
guys.
appreciate it. So now we are going to go ahead and transition to our PACE team. All right, and I will pass it over right now.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting the School Fiscal Services Division, the Principal Apportionment Section, to participate in the Expanded Learning Academy. We hope this presentation is helpful and provides a high-level overview of the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, also known as the ELOP apportionment process. My name is Lin Chu, and I am the Fiscal Consultant in the School Fiscal Services Division, also known as SFSD. Joining me today is my manager, Shawna Shepley, who is the administrator in SFSD. So there's Shawna on the camera. So I will be turning off my camera for the remainder of the presentation. So we're gonna get started. So next slide, please. SFSD will provide an overview of several key agenda items related to the ELOP apportionment process. I will begin with an overview of the ELOP funding structure. This section will include a brief description of the ELOP program, eligibility requirements, funding components, the funding formula, funding rates, key statistics, and the operational intent reporting requirements. Next, actually, if we can go back to the agenda. Next on the agenda, I will cover the expenditure reporting process. This section will explain the purpose of the reporting requirements, the recovery of unspent funds, fiscal year 2024-25 expenditure reporting deadlines, unexpended funds adjustments, the standardized account code structure, accounting guidance, and expenditure reporting reminders. Shawna will then provide a high-level overview of the audit process, which includes a brief review of the audit guide, the offer, access, and time requirement, fiscal year 2024-25 ELOP audit finding statistics, and audit penalty adjustments. Finally, Shawna will conclude the presentation with an overview of the principal apportionment process, which include an overview of the funding exhibit, the principal apportionment summary, principal apportionment payment schedule, certification cycle summary, the principal apportionment webpage, and frequently asked questions. She will also highlight key resources available on the principal apportionment webpage and share contact information for further assistance. Next slide, please. As a friendly reminder, this presentation is advisory in nature and is subject to change based on updates of statutes and regulations. It does not cover every statutory requirement or exception and should not be considered as an authoritative source on the ELOP apportionment process. For questions, concerns, or support related to the ELOP funding and apportionment, please contact the Principal Apportionment Section at pase@cde.ca.gov. For program-related questions, please contact the Expanded Learning Divisions at expandedlearning@cde.ca.gov. Next slide, please. Below are some of the key responsibility carried out by the School Fiscal Services Divisions in support of ELOP, particularly as they relate to funding and apportionment. We apportion ELOP funding to eligible LEA based on the statutory funding formula. We provide guidance on funding calculations. We regularly review the ELOP funding formula to ensure it is aligned with statutory requirements. We maintain a fiscal webpage that features the funding profile, funding results, fiscal guidance, and links to additional relevant resources. Beginning with the 2024-25 P2 apportionment, we collect the intent to operate certification from LEAs and provide fiscal support as needed. We partner with the CDE's expanded learning divisions on annual updates to the audit guide. We also provide guidance on using the penalty calculator to help LEA assess potential fiscal impact resulting from non-compliance or audit findings. We adjust prior year funding as a result of audit penalties and unexpended funds. Next slide. To begin, I will provide an overview of the ELOP funding structure, the first item on today's agenda. Next slide. The Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, ELOP, provides funding to support after-school and non-school day enrichment programs for transitional kindergarten through 6th grade. The program prioritizes resources and access for disadvantaged students. This includes English learners, foster youth, and students who are eligible for free or reduced meals. Next slide. Who is eligible for ELOP funding? School districts and charter schools that offer classroom-based instruction programs for students in transitional kindergarten through 6th grades are eligible to receive ELOP funding. Who is not eligible for ELOP funding? LEAs that serve only grades 7 through 12, such as middle school or high schools. Charter schools serving students from whom the County Office of Education is responsible for providing direct education and related services, as established under Education Code Section 47605.5. Charter schools that are 100% non-classroom based programs. Because the funding formula is based on prior year data, charter schools in their first year of operations are not eligible. Next slide, please. ELOP funding is determined based on data certified during the prior year's second principal or P2 apportionment. Specifically, this includes classroom-based average daily attendance or ADA for students in transitional kindergarten through 6th grade, as well as the unduplicated pupil percentage, UPP, for students in grades TK through 12. It is important to note that certain data are excluded from these calculations. For example, non-classroom-based ADA, such as full-time, traditional, or course-based independent study ADA, is not included when determining funding allocation. Next slide. I would like to review ELOP funding formula. Under current law, if the prior year's unduplicated pupil percentage, or UPP, is 55% or higher, rate 1 is applied. In this case, funding is calculated based on both ADA and UPP using the higher rate 1. If the prior year UPP is above 55%, rate 2 is applied instead. The minimum entitlement is $100,000 for LEA funded under rate 1. Funding at the higher rate is guaranteed for a minimum of 3 years, even if the UPP subsequently fall below 55%. This provides LEA with time to plan and to make any necessary adjustment when transitioning to rate 2. Next slide. This table illustrates ELOP funding rates since the program's inception in the 2021-22 fiscal year. Rate 1 is established in statute and has remained consistent at $2,750 since the 2022-23 fiscal year. Rate 2 is calculated based on the remaining funds after funding Rate 1 LEA's allocation and is therefore subject to change. As shown, Rate 2 has gradually decreased since 2022-23, largely due to the year-over-year increase in classroom-based ADA as the state continues to recover from the pandemic. Statute directs the California Department of Education to recoup unspent funds from LEA for the 2021-22 and 2022-23 fiscal year and reallocate them to increase Rate 2 to $2,000 in the 2024-25 P2 apportionment. In fiscal year 25-26 P1, Senate Bill 105 increased Rate 2 to a minimum of $1,575 to align with the legislature's intent for the program. Next slide. I would like to share the most recent statistics for the ELOP funding in fiscal year 2025-26 P1. Over 1,500 local educational agencies received ELOP funding this year. Of the LEA receiving funds, 233 LEAs received the minimum entitlement of $100,000. 390 received Rate 2 funding, and 923 LEAs received Rate 1 funding. Next slide. Beginning in the 2025-26 and each year thereafter, statutes require LEAs to declare their intent to operate ELOP as a condition for receiving ELOP funds. To meet this requirement, LEA must submit their declaration through the Operational Intent Data Entry screen in the Principal Apportionment Data Collection, the PADC, by May 1st, preceding the school year. LEAs must submit their intent by May 1st to be eligible to receive monthly payments beginning in the advanced apportionment in July. Corrections to operational intent must be submitted until October 1st of the school year. However, it is important to note that a correction after May 1st will impact cash flow. For example, if an LEA reports it does not intend to operate in May and then submits a correction to reflect its intent to operate by October 1st, the LEA will not begin to receive ELOP funds for the school year until the February monthly payment. Next slide. The operational intent report is submitted through P2 reporting in the Principal Apportionment Data Collection, the PADC. The reporting window opened in March 2026 and closes May 1st, 2026. LEAs should ensure their operational intent to submit it within this time frame to meet the annual reporting requirements. If corrections are needed after the May 1st deadline, LEAs may make updates until October 1st, 2026. As stated previously, it is important to report accurately by May 1st for cash flow purposes. Next slide. Next on the agenda is fiscal year 2024-25 expenditure reporting. Next slide. The purpose of recouping unspent fund is outlined in statute. LEAs have 2 years to expend each fiscal year's ELOP allocations. After this period, any unspent fund must be reported and will be recovered by the CDE pursuant to EDCO section 46120D9A. A charter school that ceases to operate before the end of the 2-year expenditure window must report final expenditure within 60 days of closures. Any remaining funds will be returned to CDE per Education Code section 46120D9B. Next slide. The department has several methods available to recover unspent funds. The typical method that is used beginning this year is to apply the adjustment as a prior year correction in the principal apportionment, which effectively reduces current year principal apportionment payments. Note that the term prior year correction is a general term for a correction to any prior fiscal year. The adjustment for unspent funds will occur after the 2-year expenditure period. Therefore, when the adjustment occurs, it is in the second prior year. Alternatively, an invoice may be issued, which is typically used in cases involving charter schools that have ceased operation. Next slide. The fiscal year 2024-25 expenditure deadline is June 30th, 2026, and covers the July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026 reporting period. The reporting window opens July 1st, 2026, with the final submission deadline of September 30th, 2026. Any unexpended fiscal year 2024-25 funds will be recovered by the department through a prior year correction in the principal apportionment, finalized at the 2024-25 annual R2 certification in February of 2027. Next slide. This is an example of the ELOP funding exhibit. Beginning with fiscal year 2023-24 and moving forward, reported unspent funds for all active LEAs are reflected in the funding exhibit. The 2023-24 unspent funds are included on line C9, which is highlighted for you. The adjustments will effectively reduce the current year PA payment in the year the adjustment is made. Next slide. The CDE recommends that LEAs receiving ELOP apportionment for multiple fiscal year use the standardized account code structures project year to differentiate revenues and expenditure by allocation year. This tool will assist LEAs to accurately report expenditure to the CDE. To illustrate, assume that an LEA received ELOP in both fiscal year 2024-25 and fiscal year 2025-26. ELOP funds must be expended by June 30th of the fiscal year following the fiscal year. Therefore, the project period for purposes of financial reporting is 2 years. During the LEA's 2025-26 fiscal year, the general ledger will include expenditure for both the 2024-25 and 2025-26 apportionments. To distinguish these allocations within the same fiscal year, the resource code, the LEA may use the project year field. When used, the project year must be applied consistently to both revenues and expenditure. Additional guidance on the use of the project year can be found in the California School Accounting Manual, CSAM, procedure number 315. Next slide. As a reminder, LEAs have 2 years to expend funds. It is important to track revenues and expenditure separately for each fiscal year's allocation. When completing the report, carefully review the instruction and example provided in the expenditure report. Accurate reporting must be submitted by the September 1st deadline. Any funds reported as unexpended must be returned to the state. Thank you. Next slide.
All right. Thank you for all of this information so far. It's a lot of information, so this is a great time to take a 2-minute bio break. We'll start the timer, so we invite you to stand up, stretch, get some water, use the restroom, get a snack. Take 2 minutes to take care of your needs. And we'll see you back here in 2 minutes. All right. Thank you, everybody. That music was like getting me pumped up. Thank you for that break. I appreciated it. So now we are going to turn it over to Shawna, also with the PACE team, to cover the remainder of the presentation. So Shawna, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Lindsey. Good morning, everyone. And as Lynn already said, thank you for having us today. We're really happy to be here. And I know the fiscal topics can be daunting and not always exciting, so I appreciate you hanging with us so far. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the audit. Okay, so beginning in fiscal year 23-24 and every year since, any LEA receiving audit funds is subject to an annual audit. Most of you probably are aware. And so the California Education Audit Appeals Panel publishes the annual audit guide for K-12 LEAs, which includes procedures for verifying compliance with the ELOP. For fiscal year 25-26, these procedures are outlined under section DZ, Expanded Learning Opportunities Program in the audit guide. LEAs should consult the EAP website for the most up-to-date information for the audit guide. And it's important to note that failure to comply with program requirements may result in an audit finding, and certain types of audit findings result in a fiscal penalty, which we will review on the next slide. So today we're not going to talk about all the audit requirements, but we're going to focus on those that do have a fiscal penalty for noncompliance. So these are ones that you want to pay close attention to. First, the offer access requirement. LEAs can satisfy the offer access requirement by conducting outreach to their pupils and families. Examples of outreach methods include updating or advertising on a website, email communications, handouts, announcements, among others. Next, we have the provide access requirement. The statutory definition of provide access means to enroll with a registration form signed by the student's parent or guardian. Audit procedures 3 and 5 in the audit guide require the auditor to verify the access requirement was met by reviewing submitted registration forms. So you want to make sure that your LEA maintains up-to-date registration forms on file for auditors to verify compliance with this requirement. Also, part of the provide access requirement includes a transportation requirement. So if your LEA doesn't offer ELOP on all school sites, transportation must be provided for any student who attends a school that is not operating an ELOP to a location that is providing the ELOP and return to their original location or another location that is established by the LEA. And then we also have the day offering requirement. So in order to meet the ELOP day requirements, LEAs must operate ELOP on all school days, which is 180 for school districts and 175 for charter schools. The program must be an in-person before or after school offering that when added to daily instructional minutes, recess, and meals are no fewer than 9 hours per day, or 8 hours for frontier designated locations. Additionally, LEAs must operate ELOP on 30 non-school days for no fewer than 9 hours per day, or 8 hours for frontier schools. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So we included some stats for audit findings that we've received so far for fiscal year 24-25. These are as of March 13th, 2026, when we prepared the presentation. So these are categorized in a few groups. So the first we got 26 for not operating an ELOP program, 37 for not offering the required number of days or hours, 32 findings for contract issues, 3 for not meeting ratio requirements, 5 for forms issues, and 16 miscellaneous, which includes the program plan, access compliance, or a combination of reasons. So recall that we talked earlier in the presentation that beginning in fiscal year 25-26, LEAs now must elect to receive ELOP funding annually. That's the operational intent. So we do expect that will eliminate the findings that we're looking at in this first bar for not operating the program, because as you can see here, these are stats for 24-25, which was when all LEAs were still receiving funds, regardless of their intent to operate. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and beginning with fiscal year 23-24 and moving forward, audit penalty adjustments are included on line C7 of the ELOP funding exhibit. So this looks familiar because Lynn showed it to you earlier. We capture the unspent funds adjustments on line C9 is what she showed you, and any audit findings are on line C7. And this adjustment will also effectively reduce the current year principal apportionment payments in the year the adjustment is made. And further in the presentation, when we show resources, I'll show you where you can find the funding exhibit for your LEA. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we'll move into just some overview and resources for the principal apportionment. Okay, like I just promised, here, I'll show you where you can find your exhibit. So funding exhibit is the detailed calculation for how we get to your funding. So if you want to see how your funding is calculated, this is where you'll go. So on our principal apportionment webpage, you would navigate to the funding exhibits link under the applicable fiscal year. So first to get there, you go to the finance and grants drop down on the green ribbon, and then you'll go to principal apportionment from there and find the funding exhibits link under the applicable fiscal year. And then it will pull up this screen that is on the right. And so then you have to select from the drop downs the period, fiscal year, and details for your specific LEA. And then it will pull it up for you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and then the total ELOP entitlement from the funding exhibit that we just looked at is then included in the principal apportionment summary file. So this is an Excel file that we publish on the CDE website at each apportionment certification. So there's several each year. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is an example of what the principal apportionment summary Excel file looks like. The column headings identify the funding component and line number. There are also corresponding resource and object codes for the standardized account code structure or SAC system. Okay, so here we have a couple of, I think I skipped forward too far. Okay, next slide. Thanks. So here are the columns that we're going to look at specific to ELOP in the file. Okay, so line A13 shows the entitlement the LEAs received for ELOP. And then also an important line is line A24. So this is total adjustments and prior year recomputations. And this includes all programs. So it does include ELOP. So if there are adjustments for unspent funds or audit findings, those are going to be included in line A24. And we publish a separate Excel file that details all of those adjustments on that same web page where you find the principal apportionment summary. And then line B1 is the total principal apportionment. And this amount is what forms the basis for LEA's monthly payments. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and so in the beginning of each fiscal year, LEAs will start getting monthly ELOP entitlement payments at the advanced certification period, which starts in July. And to determine how much of the entitlement is paid each monthly payment, we would refer to the payment schedule. This is set in statute and applies to every LEA. The majority of LEAs follow the type 1 schedule, and if you're not sure what type you are, you can look on the principal apportionment summary Excel file and it will show you. So if you're a type 1 payment schedule, you'll get 5% of the entitlement in the first 2 months, 9% from September through January, and then you receive 20% of the balance due in the months following. Okay, next slide. Here is the certification cycle summary. So as I mentioned before, we have a few different times throughout the year that we what we call certify the apportionment, in which we recalculate funding for the year. So the advance apportionment in July sets the payments for the first 7 months of the fiscal year, which is July through January. Payments for February through June are adjusted if you are rate 2 LEA, because rate 2 may be recalculated for LEAs funded based that are funded based on rate 2. And this is usually a small adjustment. It's never huge, a couple dollars maybe, but just note that rate 2 is subject to change throughout the year. If we have charter school closures or reasons to adjust funding statewide, then we'll recalculate to make sure we allocate out all the funding. And then ELOP entitlements are finalized at the P2 certification in June. slide. A couple more resources. All apportionment related information, including resources for ELOP, are available on the CDE website. So to access it, go to our website, www.cde.ca.gov, click on the Finance and Grants tab, and under Allocation and Apportionment, select Principal Apportionment. That's where you'll find all of our stuff. Okay, next slide. If you hover over the Apportionment tab and navigate to the Other PA Programs tab, you will find funding and apportionment information specific to the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. When you click on the hyperlink for Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, you will then be directed to the ELOP Funding Details webpage. There you can access the funding profile and funding results for the last 4 fiscal years. And this is another way that you can get to the funding exhibits and the things we already covered. So multiple ways to get there. Okay. All right, so now we wanted to just go over a couple of frequently asked questions that we get that are related to funding. There are obviously many more than these, so we just included the top 3. Okay, so first frequently asked question, is the unduplicated pupil percentage for ELOP funding calculated based on the 3-year average, which is what it is for LCFF, or is it based on a single year? And the answer is we based on statute or directed by statute for funding, it is the unduplicated pupil percentage that is used for LCFF, which is based on 3 years of data. So how that percentage is calculated is based on all students, unlike the ADA that's used. It's based on K-12. And it's the sum of the 3 years of the unduplicated pupil count for your LEA, and it's divided by the sum of the enrollment for the past 3 years to produce the current year's unduplicated pupil percentage. So for an example, in this year, 25-26, your unduplicated pupil percentage is based on the past 3 years. So it's 24-25, 23-24, and 22-23. And so if you're ever not sure what's being used for funding, we recommend that you go and pull up your unduplicated pupil percentage exhibit. You can always tie what you see on your ELOP funding exhibit to what you see on your unduplicated pupil percentage funding exhibit, also available in the same location that we showed you earlier. Okay, next one. Okay, another question. How are payments disseminated? We get this question a lot. So ELOP funding is included in the monthly principal apportionment payments. And as we talked about in previous slides, you receive a percentage each month according to your statutory principal apportionment payment schedule. So you want to make sure you know what your payment type is and to figure out what percentage you get each month. And the state controller's office disperses funds directly to the counties, and then that goes to LEAs from there. Okay, and the third question, I think I already saw this in the chat. When will rate 2 be determined for the following fiscal year? The straight answer is rate 2 is calculated for the first time in the advanced apportionment, which is certified by July 20th. Rate 2 is dependent upon the legislative cycle because that's what determines what the total budget is, and so we can't really, and also is dependent on ADA and UPP as of P2, so we aren't able to calculate it too much prior to that. We can give estimates, but ultimately whatever the governor signs, in the final budget is going to dictate what rate 2 will be. So we have to wait to find out what the budget will be and what the ADA and UPP will be. And then the next, thank you. Okay, so we have included here a list of helpful contacts and links for your reference. Again, if you have fiscal questions about your apportionment or funding, please contact us at PASE@cde.ca.gov. Also in our division are partners in attendance accounting. So if you have questions about attendance recovery, instructional time, and attendance accounting, please contact them at attendanceaccounting@cde.ca.gov. For inquiries regarding audits and audit resolution, please contact our other partner office in our division, which is Categorical Allocations and Audit Resolution. And their email is caar@cde.ca.gov. And also, we recommend that you stay informed with fiscal topics by joining our listserv, and the link's right there for you. Okay, and here's just a few more helpful resources with links to our principal apportionment webpage, the payment schedule we talked about, funding details, and a link to where you can find the ELOP audit finding calculator or audit penalty calculator, and also the EAP website where you can find the audit guide. And that concludes our presentation. So I want to thank you for your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions. We do appreciate your continued partnership and support of the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program.
All right. Thank you, Shawna. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great information, great presentation. Very, very happy to have you here with the field. We do have one question in the chat, so now we'll move into the Q&A portion. Just like before, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I will get to. So first question I saw was already addressed. It was one of the frequently asked questions, and I would wager that it's maybe number one. Does PACE have a sense of what 26-27 rate 2 will look like? So looking like after.
Yeah, and I'll add
yeah.
to that, Lindsay, that I mean, we don't ever publish or speak to like proposed legislation, but as most of you may already know, there is in governor's budget, there's a proposal that rate 2 be fixed at the minimum of 1,800 going forward. So we're tracking that, but at this time, that's just a proposal. So we have to see what happens when the budget's signed.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point that there's proposals, things are in flux, and when the pen meets the paper is when we really know. Thank you. All right, next question. Thank you for all the information. We work with third-party providers who take family registrations and are mostly electronic/online registrations. How would you or auditors like to receive proof of these since we do not collect them? An electronic format that verifies they are signed and registered?
Sorry, I'm reading the question here. So, okay, so this would be talking about registration forms for the audit. Okay, and the audit guide itself has the requirements for the registration forms, and I don't have that pulled up right now, but basically it's just required to be signed by the parent or guardian and on file. Is that right? So if you have electronic, I think that's fine, as long as they're accessible to the auditor. I don't think there's any requirement to be hard copy. Is that the question? Is hard copy or electronic?
I think so. And Claudia, if you want to come off mute and say if it should be on, if online is acceptable or if it needs to be hard copy. But I think to Shauna's point, as long as it is accessible by the auditor.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Shawna. I think we work with all third-party providers and they take all the registrations. We do all of the offer and provide access to families, but registrations go directly to our vendors. And so we don't have a paper form, nor we don't have access to their registration systems, but they have been warned since last year. We had an internal audit with the things that were in your audit guide. I just want to make sure that would suffice, that we would have some form of electronic, because they need to create these reports for us, some form of proof. Since the pandemic, we moved away from paper. It's like, how do I provide that proof to auditors?
Yeah, I think as long as there's some sort of electronic signature from the parent, nothing says it has to be hard copy. I'm looking at the audit guide now. It just has to be, the registration form has to be on file and signed by the parent or guardian, but it doesn't say it has to be a wet signature.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that when a parent registered, they were asked for a signature, other than by registering, it was confirmation that they actually applied. But you are requiring a signature?
Yeah, the audit guide requirements are based on statute. So the statute specifically says signed by the parent or guardian. So I would check with your auditor on that for what they are going to require, but some sort of signature, I mean, that could trip you up in the audit for sure if you're just registering kids without getting something on file from the parent approving it.
Well, we get all their personal information, the technicalities of registration, emergency contact, all the right information. It's just that signature. I'm not 100% sure that we all collect them all, but this is a good one. So we shall
And
make sure we do that for summer.
And one note that I would add is to defer to your LEA's electronic signature policies or your LEA legal team on using that kind of enrollment.
Okay.
In addition to consulting the audit guide, and there was their contact email on the previous slide
Awesome.
to as a resource as well.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's a great question. All right, next question. Question about transportation and 9-hour requirement. Our summer program is at one site, so we provide transportation. In the past, we have offered transportation from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 8 hours, due to transportation department constraints. Our program itself is 9 hours, open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This past audit cycle, we were informed that busing also needs to be 9 hours, which has put quite a strain on our programs and shifted how we are doing summer this year. Is transportation really also required to meet the 9-hour rule?
Yeah, so I think this kind of crosses over between our, the program office and us on these type of questions, but it's not a requirement for it's a requirement of the access. So I do think auditors, you could get an audit finding for that as it would be an access finding. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be a part of the 9-hour time requirement because one could argue that the student's not being provided full access if they can't stay the full 9 hours. But Lindsey, I don't know if the ExLD has anything to add.
Yeah, I would support what you said that, offer and provide access to the full extent of the program is the intention. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else from ExLD would want to add anything, but that would be my guidance, is that they need to be provided access to the full 9 hours.
I can speak to that a little bit, Lindsay. And Jessica, I see your question. So the requirement is to have the doors open for 9 hours of programming for that access. That's the key piece. And obviously transportation is required if the location is off-site. It is a common practice if it's because of those transportation challenges where you could have students that as part of your early release policy with your coding that they are leaving early due to transportation, and then that transportation is provided. So that's your piece to double check is your early release policy regarding your transportation.
Thank you, Daniela. Yeah, the early release is a great factor or great, component to utilize. Next question. For budgeting and planning for staffing, et cetera, for the next year, and the tier 2 amount that we see on the CDE website is a good starting place, but how much could it fluctuate by?
Yes, this has been the common challenge for rate 2 LEAs since the inception. As you saw on that slide that Lynn shared, it's fluctuated a lot up and down. And it's been a hard target for our folks in the state administration to hit because it is based on several factors, right? So if when rate 1 LEAs are receiving a bigger portion of the funds, then that's also going to drive down rate 2 funding. If overall we've seen the ADA increase in the state, like Lynn said, it's been a trend because we're recovering from the pandemic, which is wonderful. We're getting more classroom-based ADA. We have new programs for attendance recovery. So ADA is increasing, but that also drives down the rate. So it's been a a known and common issue, and it's not something that our office has been able to, we don't have any control over. But I will say that that Department of Finance is aware of the issue, and that's why every year we see them making efforts to stabilize it. So Lynn covered some of those efforts they've made in the past year. So we'll have to see what next year looks like. But as of right now, we don't know for next year what it will look like, unfortunately.
Yeah, thank you. Next question. If a student applies, but the program is full, possibly due to a late application or a mid-year enrollment for student, and they are on a wait list, would they be considered registered or just offer? And I see Daniela put FAQs number 2 and 3 in there. Thank you. They have been provided access, but they I would need to actually, Daniela, would you mind speaking to that?
That's a tricky question. Obviously, you need to have an enrollment form on file, and that you've had the offer because you've advertised. They've completed the enrollment form, which is kept on file, and then if you don't have the seat, then they're waitlisted. There is some discussion regarding, are they truly having access if they sit on a wait list for, X amount of days. That being said, the LEA should be making a concerted effort to hire more staff to clear the wait list. So, based on FAQ 2 and 3, you've done the offer, you've met the access requirement if you have the enrollment form on file with the parent signature.
Thank you, Daniela. Yeah, there is some nuance there. But we want to make sure that, you're hitting the offer and provide access. And that's something that your regional education programs consultant and your regional team can support with, being a thought partner and making sure your LEA is taking steps to hire, to clear the wait list, to provide that access. All right, thank you to those who have been chiming in the chat, providing resources, links to FAQ, language from the audit guide. Thank you. This is helpful and eased someone's impending panic. That's good. We don't want to have panic. All right, just catching up. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Good conversation. And resources being shared. I want to just, okay, good. Got another question. Could fragmented transportation, such as morning drop-off run and a separate end-of-day pickup run, satisfy the transportation component of the 9-hour requirement? Andres, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it was in response to Jessica's question about busing constraints or transportation department constraints. And so I think the question is, can a fragmented transportation schedule meet the transportation requirement when busing students to and from a school site that is not their own school site?
When you say fragmented, what do you mean by that?
So like, let's say running transportation from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then another run, let's say from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. To ensure that you're busing students to and from school.
Can I just point out, I think there might be a little bit of a confusion here. The transportation requirement, the only requirement is if the program is located off-site. We are not talking about door-to-door transportation of transportation to the start of the school day or at the end of the school day back home. This is not door-to-door transportation. It's only if programming is off-site, which is typically a third-party off-site provider, or in some instances when an LEA, they don't have programming at their site, but another school within the LEA has a program, so they are busing the students in that other program. It's like they have a contract and they are offering the services. So I just wanted to clarify that point. It's only for off-site programming during instructional days and only during the 30 days of intersession. Again, only off-site. There are some LEAs, it's a local decision, who choose to offer service at the end of the school day, but that is not a requirement of ELOP, only off-site locations.
Thank you for that clarification. And I think as long as it meets that 9-hour offer and provide access requirement, then yes. The summer school hours alone, not transportation, funded through ELOP, needs to be 9 hours. Yes, that is in Ed code. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the support, for chiming in. I want to offer another minute or two for questions. Thank you for the thought partnership as well. Great space for that. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So let's flood the reactions with a heart, a thumbs up, a celebration. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our PACE team. Great information. I personally love the resources and the screenshots. I am a big visual learner, so that is really helpful for me. And we will have access to these slides. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will turn it back to the CAN team.
Oh, age-old battle can never come off mute in enough time. I want to extend gratitude and appreciation to each and every one of the folks that presented. Lindsey, thank you for being our moderator. Lien, Shawna, Paula, thank you for joining us. Liberty, you were missed in the space, but the information, as many have said, was super valuable. We are so very grateful to have had this opportunity to continue to learn and grow together, gather better understanding as we've continued to do this work. And again, just a lot of gratitude. So to each and every one of you. If I can get the next slide. Remember, for those that are joining us, we are here as support. Please reach out to the system of support. Many of those folks who jumped off mic today throughout to answer questions, to be able to provide insights, are all folks who are readily available and here to support you in your journey of supporting expanded learning programs. So we are many together. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us as needed to support you in the work that you do. Next slide. For those that are not yet connected with us, please use the QR code or the bit.ly link to sign up for our newsletters. Stay connected to all the information, to all of the dialogue that is happening across the state. We do our best to try to make sure that the information that is in the newsletter is very valuable to you all. So if you're not on the newsletter list, please make sure that you sign up for that. We love to be able to get connected with you and continue to share the resources. Other ways that you can find us these are all our social media channels. Staying up to date with all of the information, whichever is your preference. These are our handles, or you can scan the QR code to get any of the information all in one place. And this is where I'm going to pause for the cause. Please take a moment and provide feedback. Those that know us and those that are new to us, the feedback is very important to us. This is how we get better at being able to provide insights, reports, resources, whatever it is that the field needs. And sometimes we don't know that information if we don't have it. So this is the time. So I'm just going to pause, give you a minute, scan the QR code or click the link. All right. Well, hopefully, Melissa, thanks for the jams. Hopefully, folks have been able to access, if not already finished, this short little survey for feedback. We are extremely appreciative to each and every one of you. A big shout out to all of the folks that took part in making this all happen. We are very grateful for each and every one of you. To the work that you all are doing out there in the field, please know that it is valued and it is appreciated. You're doing a wonderful job wherever it is that you are. We are here to support you. Our ask is just that however we can be of service to reach out to us. In regards to what the recording and the resources today, the gentle reminder is give us 48 hours at least to be able to get it up on the website. And if you don't see it before then, please then reach out. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Continue to do the work that you do, and thank you for the time and spending it with us today. So, without further ado, here's 15 extra minutes back to you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.